Today in comics a lot, there is almost a sort of snarky derision towards the notion of having to put extra captions or editor's notes or explanatory captions in comics so that you pick up these newer books, and I find the same thing today, where if you're not reading that book and have not been reading that book, good luck finding out what is currently happening in that particular book, because it's almost
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the whole
main
notion of it being
complaint
some
I've
first
heard
comic
from
is
non-comics readers is, I can't it's easier to
Exactly.
understand Finnegan's Wake than the average X-Men story. And you can see it sometimes when you walk into a
Finnegan's
comic
Wake
shop.
doesn't continue the next month.
Excuse me.
You walk in, and if the guy behind the counter with his stained T-shirt does not recognize you as one of his regulars, he will ignore you or be borderline rude. This has happened to us, has it not, my dear? It's like, yeah, you're right. It's this little club, and it's our little club, and you are not welcome, you girl.
Yeah.
Did you have a question on that?
Yeah, quick question. I just wanted to know, okay, when establishing, like, he just spoke about having captions and your readers not knowing the backstory, so, the writers, they put captions and, editor's notes and such. What if it's, like I spoke to you earlier and I asked you a question, what if you're a first-time writer and this is like the first, because I'm writing a graphic novel, that's the second part of my thing. What if it's the first book, do I need to, put those notes, or should I just, because if you're reading it for the first time, you're learning just as I'm learning and everybody else is learning.
Well, that's what your job as a storyteller is to figure out how much you want to reveal. I mean,
Yeah, for you don't add notes, because if you're doing your job properly, that information is contained in the story itself. Danny and I once had a boss who said the conflict had to be established by what, page 3?
page 2 or 3.
Yeah, that was kind of draconian. But in principle, he's right. You have to give them that information. If they have to go somewhere outside the book that's in their hands, you haven't done your job right. If they have to go onto a computer website, for example, as happens, to find out what these characters' relationship to each other is, you screwed the pooch as a fiction writer.
That's a technical term we use in the business.
Yeah. It's right.
So I think what you're talking about is you have, you have some kind of universe,
Yeah.
and you need people to know about, you need people to know about it to understand the story, but you don't want to give them the whole information dump in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's the hard thing to know. Just try it and try to put the minimum amount of information they need to know to follow the story. Right? Don't overload them, but figure out if you want to reveal that this guy is a CIA agent on page 1, John Smith, CIA agent, the title, or is that a big reveal in page 25 where, oh my God, he's a CIA, it depends on your goal.
Okay, second part of the question. Is there a difference between a graphic, because I'm doing a graphic novel, but I see here that you have the Marvel formula and the DC formula and everything. Is there a big difference between writing a 22-page comic and an actual graphic novel, as opposed to?
Well, there's a pretty big difference between a novel and a short story. The simplest definition I ever heard is a short story is a story in which one thing happens. That sounds pretty simplistic, but it's also pretty true. For something to be called a novel, it has to have a lot more information about the characters, and you can get in history, and you can get in milieu. If you're writing a prose novel, you've got a lot more elbow room than writing a teleplay or a comic, where really every word has, because you're working against a time constraint. With a novel, it's a little looser. You still have to keep the story moving, but things don't have to proceed as quickly, and you have more space, more room to establish things. If it's important, or even interesting that the town in which this stuff happens, and you can get it, give that a page. You wouldn't have that page to give if you're doing a 22-page comic book story. So there's, I've done both, and they're both really interesting forms to work in. But there's just a lot more to a novel, and it's not, you can develop subsidiary characters and the difference.
I think that there's a comic book story in a graphic novel.
Yeah, but I'm trying to explain that a graphic novel, in order to deserve the term novel, has to obey some of the rules that any novel does. And the other thing is, well, there's something that literary people call a dramatic novel. Great Gatsby is a dramatic novel. It's one relatively brief story. It proceeds in a straight line. It makes its point, and it's over in 44,000 words. Then there's War and Peace, which had a panorama of mid-century Russia and France and Tolstoy's theories of history. It's a perfectly legitimate novel, but it's not a dramatic novel. It's a novel that presents a time and place in all of its nuances. That's a worthy thing to do also, but it's 11,000 pages.
Have you written comics at all before?
This is my first one.
Yeah, you see, if you were my student, I would give you the following piece of advice, which you would completely disregard. But it would be, write a 5 or 10-page story first. And then when you've learned to crawl, then you can walk and then run, you know? Don't start with your first thing as a massive work, you know, that has a million subplots and sub-characters. First see if you like and if you have skill at writing a 5 or 10-page story. It could be with one of the characters from your graphic novel, but, you know, give yourself the chance to really learn the feel of the medium.
And also, I have hired writers from other media who are, as writers, much better than I am, and they were not good comic book writers. There are mechanical things about comic books that don't apply anywhere else. One is, it's not a story that is experienced in time. It's experienced in space. You are working with 8.5 by 11 inches. It is a page. It is not a proscenium. It is not a strip of film. It is a page, and it is a page that depends on the artist, the graphics guy, to carry at least half of the narrative. And it is a page which will not accommodate 10 panels if 3 of them are Yankee Stadium. And the others have 70-word balloons in them. There are really rigid restrictions that come with the farm about space. Those are things that beginners, even a beginner who has written a dozen good novels, does not become aware of. They're learnable. One of the things that kind of irritates me about the tendency of some comic book publishers to hire a name recognizable from television is these people don't know the stuff that Denny and I teach in the first class. And so they will do a bad job.
But they're famous.
They're famous, and somebody will pick it up because Charlie Movie Star wrote it, and they will say, what panel do I look at next? Where's the picture? What is that guy doing? And they will decide they don't like comic books because they didn't like this one. Before you have Charlie TV Star write his comic book, they ought to take Denny's class and have that guy take Denny's class.
Or hire Denny to ghostwrite it for them.
See, because he has twin kids, and they're grade schoolers, so yeah, hire Dan.
We have another